How do you make the shift that takes you in the opposite direction to the rest of the world? Well, you first believe it's possible. Then you talk to people who have done similar shifts and who have a concept of what's possible. And then you start. Other people's expectations and lack of imagination can and will hold them back. Do you want them to hold you back too? Take the first scary step and then simply keep going, just like Donnalee did.
Welcome to Personal Pivots. I am delighted to have Donnalee Donaldson join us today. Donnalee is a lawyer turned educational specialist and learning experience designer. She is passionate about increasing equity for education for Black students. So welcome, Donnalee. So excited to hear about your stories and your pivots.
Thank you so much for having me, Farhana. I'm excited to be here as well.
You moved from the US to Rwanda, so that's one big pivot. And then you also moved careers from being a lawyer to getting into the educational sector. So
right.
Did two pivots happen at the same time, or did they happen separately?
Yeah, so those things actually did happen at the same time. Yeah, so lots of changes happened in that year. I had initially gone to the US as an international student, like so many students of my background in Jamaica, and I was fortunate enough to gain a scholarship, well, 2 scholarships back to back actually, that allowed me to complete my undergraduate education and then law school in the US. And I then began working as a lawyer there. And it's interesting that at that point, I did a full 8 years in the US, even though my initial plan was to just go for 4 years, get a degree, and then come home. And I think around that 8-year mark, I just had some epiphanies around the likelihood that if I did not make a shift then, I would never make it. It's very common for people of my background at least, to go to the US, and spend their entire adulthood, and they'll build a house back home, and then they won't come home until they are retired.
Right.
And so the thought that I had escaped and was coming back was completely baffling to almost everyone. And it was a shock to me because I didn't think of it that way. But almost everyone around me thought of it that way. All my friends and family thought that I was crazy, because that was not the normal path, right?
Yeah.
A dear friend of mine who I went to university with, she is Ghanaian, and when I talked to her about it and expressed how confused I was that no one was supporting my decision, she said to me, well, why don't you just come to Ghana? It had never, ever occurred to me that I personally would take such a step. I didn't know anyone who had even made such a move. There was nobody in my neighborhood that was doing anything like that.
The direction is the opposite way normally, right?
Exactly. And to this day, my family and friends still say this, like, you don't know anybody who's trying to go in this. The directions I continue to go in don't make sense to people around me, but she made it seem so simple. She was just like, yeah, just come, you'll find a job, it'll be easy, And she said it so matter-of-factly that I was encouraged to try. It was a very quick process. And it was probably 3 to 4 weeks from the point of application to me just deciding, okay, I'm going to move to Rwanda. It's time to book tickets and do this. So it was
very quick.
It was very, very quick. Yeah. And I actually, now it's funny to look back because I remember everyone who thought I was crazy for trying to come back to Jamaica. When I told them I was moving to Rwanda, they all said, wait, we didn't want you to do that. If that's what you're going to do, you can come home. But back then I was like, no, I'm excited. I'm feeling all this anticipation of something new and being in a new country, new continent, making new friends, charting a new path. So I was,
and
young
everyone
and foolish.
Scared for you, right? How did that make you feel? Like, did you want more support at that time?
Not really, no. I'm a bit of a lone ranger. So I think I was shocked initially because I didn't fully grasp how much of an opportunity I had.
Yeah.
By being able to earn an education abroad or achieve an education or even education period. And, you know, again, because my mother was a teacher, it was very much drilled into me that I had to get a degree, and not just a degree, by the way. I always knew I had to get two. That was very clear. And I hadn't really thought about the fact that people in my family didn't have 2 degrees. Most people in my family had no degrees. Even my mother got her degree while I was a child. Like, I remember her, you know, taking night classes while she was teaching full time and all of that. And so it's actually really funny that she was able to brainwash me into thinking that it was inevitable for me to get 2 degrees when that was not my norm, you know? Yeah. So, so I think I've just been somewhat of a loner already. So it was kind of easy for me to just say, okay, I'm going to do this thing.
Something very different. But I'm sure there must have been people who felt that you were given an opportunity and a privilege, and you were kind of throwing it away by wanting to come back, wanting to go to Africa?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, that has to do with some of the very real challenges that we face within the Caribbean and within Africa in terms of socioeconomic issues. But some of that also has to do with, you know, stereotypes about what is possible in these spaces. And even stereotypes that we hold against ourselves, you know. Even to this day, there are people who are in Jamaica that will speak as if it's not possible to do well there. And I recognize that part of that is because of the harsh realities of what people have lived through. But part of that also, I think, requires us to have pivots in our mentality and our mindset, and for us to be able to envision new worlds and to be confident that we can help to create new possibilities for ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, you know, just moving to a completely different continent and a different country is a huge thing. But then also, you know, changing careers in the midst of it. There's a lot of people right now with COVID happening who are either contemplating a career change or being pushed into a career change.
Right.
Is there any advice or any suggestions you can give them as they think through this?
Yeah, sure. And I've actually had a lot of people reach out to me more than usual, you know, sending me messages on LinkedIn, various social media saying, I want to know how to move to Rwanda, or I want to move to Africa. How can I do this? And I think there's something about COVID where we're being forced to face our own mortality a bit and our lack of control. And I think people are seeing that if there are certain dreams they have or things they want to explore, that they have to jump and do it because the opportunity might not be there. But there's also still that fear of making these big jumps. And so what I suggest to people is to think about ways in which they can do it incrementally. So, you know, if one has a desire to switch a job or to move to a new place, it doesn't mean that you have to do it all at once the way I did. You can volunteer in that space for some time. You can try to find a mentor in that space. You can take a free class online that's related to that subject matter. If it's for a new country you want to move to, you can read a book about that country. You can join Facebook groups with people in that country, right? And just start talking to them and engaging with them. You can follow influencers from that country on social media and learn more about it, or reach out to people that are there. So there are lots of ways that people can take small steps every day that help to build momentum, so that these pivots are not as aggressive and overwhelming as if they do it all at once.
Yeah. So, Donnalee, I'm just going to shift gears quickly and just ask you, you've been there now since
2013, yes.
2013. Time flies, eh?
Yeah. Absolutely. I did not predict that this was going to happen.
Yeah. Do you regret it? And if you had the chance to go back, would you redo it again?
Yeah, easily. I would. I absolutely would, because I feel as if I have created a life unlike one that I knew was possible. A lot of the things that we think are so scary and so impossible is because we're not talking to people that have done them, right? So we don't even have a concept of what is possible. So again, for me, I didn't know anybody who had moved to Rwanda. But then once I looked into this opportunity in Rwanda, I started looking around in my network, and then I did find someone who had interned in Rwanda for a year. And so I was able to talk to her online. You know, hadn't met this person, but just because I kept asking, I eventually got connected to someone. And just being able to talk to her and hear about her experience and realize here is someone who has done this.
Yes.
I didn't have to feel so intimidated by it anymore. So, but if I had never taken the action to apply for the job, even without knowing anything about Rwanda, I wouldn't have gotten into that process of interviewing. I wouldn't have thought, okay, let me look in my network to talk to someone else. So each step is like a domino, you know, falling on another one that leads to more and more momentum that led me here. But the first step has to be taken.
And it's a balance of action and thinking, not just thinking, right?
A lot of us are way more biased to thinking than we realize. We overanalyze things. We buy all the books, we buy all the courses, we listen to all the TED Talks, right? All the podcasts. I mean, we would read every article about something. And I do think it's important to push ourselves to just take a step, just try something instead of analyzing everything down to the, you know, the most minute detail.
Because sometimes you end up talking yourself out of these amazing things.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm a planner, you know, I am a person with a 5-year plan. I have my life very well mapped out in different categories. I check into my plan every 6 months. Yes, I have my life mapped out in Word documents and spreadsheets and Trello. So, but I have had to give myself room to explore. And so sometimes it's actually funny to me now. I go back and I look at my 2016 plan, my 2017 plan, and I just laugh because some of those things happen, and it's important to set goals because it helped me to visualize and to hit certain goals. But also so many things that I thought I was going to do didn't happen, but were replaced by better things, right?
I love that. I love that, you know, making your plan, but making room in your plan to allow yourself to explore. Thank you so much, Donnalee. It's been an incredible conversation. I've learned so much, and I think it's inspiring to see the pivots that you've made, to feel that you have, you know, achieved that purpose in your life, and you continue to kind of work towards it. It's really inspiring. I think a lot of people right now are looking for that kind of inspiration. Many people who are struggling with changing careers or never had that space to think about that big idea that they wanted to do. Maybe now they have that space and time, but they're scared or they don't know where to start. Will find this of a lot of value. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.